which has been remodeled out of existence. But nonetheless, Paul Laszlo, not that well known a name, but an extremely important, extremely good architect, also a European, a Hungarian, who came over to the United States in the 1930s. Georgescu also worked with McAllister and Wagner in the early 1950s. Now this is Wayne McAllister, who was designed a number of drive-in theaters, drive-in restaurants in the 1930s, and then designed such great Googie-style coffee shops as Bob's Big Boy in Burbank on Riverside. I'm comparing this with a building that Georgescu designed more than a decade later. This is also a restaurant in Montrose, the Bucharesti restaurant, I believe, probably with Romanian food. And this isn't just a plain commercial building. This large kind of sign element integrated into the building to give this low building prominence, the way that the entry, the approach to the building is very carefully detailed and considered, the openness and glass. All of these things are which a great architect like Wayne McAllister had also dealt with, because it was a Southern California car-oriented culture that he was working in. It's very different than Romania, and yet Georgescu had the ability to adjust. I was just thinking this morning, driving over here, the word that came to me was creative resiliency. Through all the ups and downs of Georgescu's career, and I can't myself imagine, just dropping everything within a day and going to a completely new country and trying to reestablish myself. So there's a personal resiliency, but then to become excited, to become inspired by the new scene that he found in Los Angeles, and to do something at the level of all of these buildings he did here in Los Angeles really speaks to the quality of the man as an architect. A lot of these archives and history, unfortunately, are lost to us completely. But this is the Fremont Hotel, which was being designed and built at the time that Georgescu worked for Wayne McAllister, about 1954, 1955. This is in Las Vegas. This is the first high-rise in Las Vegas, and it is a really interesting prefabricated sunscreen system that you see here on the exterior, creating this sort of pattern on the exterior over here. Again, this is not just a plain commercial building. There is a complexity and a care for detail and design. Whether or not Georgescu was involved in any of this, we don't know at all. It's simply lost to us and to history. But nonetheless, I present it to you to show the context that Georgescu was going through. A couple of other interesting projects. This is Georgescu's office. Look at this model right here with this really intriguing angle to it. It's a model of an apartment house, which these are further drawings of it, these two on the left. And you see that indeed there's this structural element that runs through. This was going to be in Santa Monica, I believe, near the beach, and with this structural diagonal running through it, creating this outdoor space, which is several stories high, as you can see. This is from the main side. The angle is back here. It was back up against the mountain. Well, that might again explain some of these angles. It has a very distinctive element, which you do again see repeated in Georgescu's work, of double two layers of housing. So they're offset. So this is one layer that you enter, go up steps. Here's another set of rooms, and perhaps even going up to another level up here. Interesting idea. And I throw in this building, which is a building from about 2000 by Morphosis. This is the federal building in San Francisco by Morphosis. And here you see these huge diagonal structural elements creating this really remarkable multi-level lobby in that building. Again, this building is from what, the 1970s, I believe. Yeah, much earlier. There's no immediate connection here, but creative minds dealing with interesting ideas. Now I want to take a little bit of time to talk about the Skylots project that Christopher showed. Back in Romania, when he was there, Georgescu visited the Wiesenhof Siedlung, which is a collection of model houses and apartments that in Stuttgart, as kind of a World's Fair or an example of the latest in residential modern design. And it had buildings by Mies van der Rohe, and this one here in particular was by Le Corbusier. So Georgescu visited this, studied it, I am sure, because it was very good architecture and very different sorts of ideas. But this idea of multiple housing really intrigued him. So at a time when he wasn't working on a lot of other projects, he came up with this idea of skylots, which, as Christopher said, were these 600-foot tall towers clustered together with connections at mid-level across from one side to another. The base included, which you can kind of widens out at the bottom. Incidentally, this is the 405 freeway here. And the base were shopping centers, recreational facilities, offices, etc. So it was indeed a whole neighborhood, a whole city in a compact tower. 600 foot tall, these are pretty big. They were half the size of the Sears Tower in Chicago. I'm just throw this in here. So they were about yay tall or so. Quite a visionary idea. And though really frankly it was not a realistic real estate plan, because who's going to buy up all of the land on the south side of the 405 freeway from Brentwood all the way down to Irvine. Nonetheless, as a piece of architecture and design, working out all of the social interactions of a building like that, it was visionary, and it reminded me, for example, of Walt Disney's plan for Epcot, which was never built, but also was a visionary city involving offices, recreation, shopping, and housing as well. And this was being planned about the same time as the Skylots, which was 64, 65, 66. Now here's a map. I don't want to go too far over my time here. Of Los Angeles. And again, the Skylot structures were going to be built all the way from the Brentwood area up here, all the way down with an extension down the 110 freeway towards Long Beach, and then picked up over here in Orange County and coming all the way down to Irvine and the Laguna Beach exit. Just a massive, far-reaching. But the idea was that he felt, and this is kind of an early ecological idea, that you could not keep building out and out on 1 or 2 story housing and development. That you needed to go up. You need to have high density with these high-rise towers, and also so that people would not have to travel and commute so far from their home. Interesting, I'm just throw this in here because this is another unknown project that I found. Again, this was in 1965. That's when Irvine down here opened, and it was planned by William Pereira. And he also had planned a town center which would involve high-rise buildings with low-rise pedestrian malls, shopping center, etc. This was never built, but it was in the air. So Georgescu was definitely up to date in the architectural thinking of the times. This is how Irvine actually came to be developed, low-rise mostly, but master planned with green belts, recreation, variety of different homes, also a very successful visionary idea. A couple of comparisons also to the skylots. This is the apartment house at Beverly and Wilshire by Victor Gruen Associates, which shows again this offset, staggered two-story apartments. Or Corbusier's Unité d'Habitation, which was a whole city in a building, apartments, but then at the mid-level, I think I have a slide of this. Here are the apartments. This is the Corbusier building, two-story, and here's the Georgescu idea for the skylots in two-story and staggered in the construction. Or the public spaces. This is the Corbusier's shopping street, which was halfway up the building. While this is a drawing of what Georgescu was proposing for the base of the skylots. Just to wind up, and then we'll take some questions and a little discussion with all of us. But in 1976, James Wine's and Allison Sky of Sight, which was a very progressive art and architecture firm, they designed these best showroom buildings, as you can see, these kind of art installations as well. And Allison Sky wrote this book, Unbuilt America, and she somehow, I don't know how, found out about skylots in 1976 and published it in that. So that's the end of my presentation. And so if Chris and Tim, maybe we can just sit here on the edge of the stage, and if you have any further comments, or if you want to, if we have any questions. Question.
Alan, would the John Hancock Tower in Chicago be a more sort of time overlapping or relevant comparison with the skylots as far as this building with sort of city-like facilities and combining residential and office?
Yeah, that was in the mid to late 60s. Yeah. So again, yeah, that was an idea in the air among architects. Yes?
First of all, I must say that the whole presentation was a delight. I'm Romanian. My name is Ilana Costello. I live in Los Angeles and am a member of the Arts Council of the Museum of Art in Palm Springs. And I wrote an article some time ago in Romanian papers, published in several Romanian papers, on Haralamb, called by friends Haralamb Georgescu, whom I had a pleasure to meet. I think it was, well, I arrived in the States in 1973, and soon after that, a professor of mine at UCLA, Professor Nathan Shapira, introduced me to Haralamb in a restaurant in Brentwood. And I was brand new to the States, and people are different here, of course. So when I met Haralamb, I found the professor of architecture from Romania, the gentleman, European gentleman. He was extremely kind, very soft-spoken, and yet with very strong personality.
Excuse me, we have very limited time. We're going to have to get out of here very quickly.
Very good. I put some references here. If somebody is interested, they are about Haralamb and about this.
Great, thank you very much. Did Tim or Chris, you have anything else you wanted to add?
I was just wanted to point out that on that map that you showed of Los Angeles where the skylots went, I think that the dotted area, which was pretty much the mass of Los Angeles, was concentrated into that line of buildings. That he was able to take that urban sprawl and put it in one neat line. His whole concern was that people were going to work at 7 in the morning, coming home at 7 at night, eating TV dinners, and it was the end of the family. And his vision came true. If you go to Los Angeles now, try to drive through there.
What strikes me about skylots is there's something online that written by Georgescu at the time that he was presenting it about his fears for the environment in LA and wanting to minimize the footprint on the land and preserve as much open space as possible, and also his concerns about the breakdown of the nuclear family. And he talks about, dad gets up in the morning, goes to the work, and the kids go to school, and mom is left home with all her machines to run the household and pop pills out of boredom. That's how he put it. And his idea with Skylots was to keep the nuclear family together while also protecting the environment.
I'm getting,
Yeah, I think we're going to have to leave now.
That's why I'm asking. You came all the way from Arizona.
So that same vernacular was happening in Arizona with Solari, building a utopia or structures where they're contained and without having a big impact on the environment.
Yeah, yeah.
Same time.
Yeah, as part of the architecture profession, and looking forward, trying to solve the problems of the cities. Well, we'll be around out in the hallway. I know Hugh Capter is going to be in here, another great architect that we need to learn more about as well. But thank you all for coming.
thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for attending this presentation. We do need to clear the room in order to switch it over. If you could please exit through the eastern door, the door closer to the stage, by where that tripod is.